What if the life you're living is a shadow of who you truly are? What if beneath the rush of deadlines, the weight of expectations, and the flicker of screens, there's a version of you that remembers eternity? The ancient mystics of Egypt, India, and Greece whispered of a singular truth: humanity has forgotten its essence. They spoke of a soul that descends into the dense vibrations of this world, cloaked in a false self, a costume woven from fear, ambition, and the desperate need for external approval. This is no mere philosophy. It's a warning etched in the stones of forgotten temples and encoded in the stars. To ignore it is to wander blindly through existence, tethered to a lie. In the emerald halls of ancient Egypt, the god Thoth, scribe of the cosmos, was said to hold the secrets of existence. His emerald tablets, shimmering with divine knowledge, spoke of techniques so potent they were forbidden to all but the initiated. One such technique promised to peel back the veil of forgetfulness, allowing the soul to recall its past lives, not as a parlor trick, but as a key to remembering its divine origin. This wasn't about chasing fleeting memories of being a pharaoh or a poet. It was about reclaiming the eternal thread of your being, the part of you that has always existed untarnished by the chaos of this world. But why was this knowledge hidden? The mystics knew the human mind is fragile, easily seduced by illusions. The soul, they taught, falls in frequency when it enters this plane, like a radio tuning to a static-filled station. It becomes entangled in what the Hindus call Maya, the illusion of separation. You begin to believe you are your job, your fears, your Instagram likes, or the voice in your head that says you're not enough. This is the false self, a construct built from childhood wounds, societal scripts, and the relentless noise of a world that profits from your amnesia. Science echoes this in its own way. Neuroscientists describe the brain's default mode network, a web of neural chatter that reinforces our sense of identity, often trapping us in loops of self-doubt and comparison. The mystics and modern researchers converge on a chilling truth. You are not what you think you are. The forbidden technique of Thoth was not a spell or a potion, but a process, a disciplined unraveling of the false self to reveal the soul's eternal core. It began with a radical act confronting the possibility that everything you believe about yourself might be a lie. Imagine standing before a mirror not to check your reflection, but to question the very face staring back. Are you the sum of your failures, your ambitions, or something far greater? The Egyptians, like the yogis of India and the philosophers of Greece, believed that to remember who you were in a past life was to remember your soul's journey across time, a journey that reveals you are not a fleeting spark, but a flame that has burned through eons. Yet this path is not without danger. The mystics warn that those unprepared for such truths could become lost, their minds fractured by the weight of eternity. To glimpse the soul's vastness without grounding is like staring into the sun. It can blind as much as it illuminates. Thoth's technique required courage, for it demanded facing the parts of yourself you've buried: shame, fear, the nagging sense of unworthiness. It also required surrender, a willingness to let go of the stories you've clung to. Quantum physics offers a parallel. The observer effect suggests that the act of observing alters reality. To observe your true self, to question the false, is to shift the very fabric of your existence. This hidden warning is not meant to scare you, but to awaken you. You are not here to accumulate more knowledge, more likes, more things. You are here to remember. The soul's memory is not locked in some distant vault. It hums within you, waiting for the noise to quiet. Thoth's forbidden technique is a map to that silence, a guide to peeling back the layers until you stand naked before your own divinity. But the first step is the hardest: to admit you've forgotten who you are. Will you dare to ask the question that could unravel everything? The air in the ancient temples of Egypt was thick with incense, the walls alive with hieroglyphs that seemed to pulse with secrets. Here, under the watchful eyes of Thoth, initiates were led into chambers where time itself seemed to pause. They were not there to learn. They were there to die, not in body but in spirit. This was the heart of Thoth's forbidden technique, a symbolic death, a carefully guided journey beyond the veil of the physical world. The mystics believed that to remember who you were in a past life, you had to first shed the illusion of who you are now. This was no gentle meditation. It was a confrontation with eternity, a plunge into the abyss to retrieve the soul's lost light. Symbolic death was not unique to Egypt. In India, yogis practiced pratyahara, withdrawing the senses to mimic the stillness of death, while in Greece, the Eleusinian mysteries led initiates through rituals that mirrored the soul's descent and return. The science of today offers a parallel near-death experiences, studied by researchers like Dr. Bruce Grayson, reveal that those who brush against death often return with a transformed sense of self, reporting vivid memories and a profound connection to something greater. The ancients knew this truth intuitively. They engineered a temporary out-of-body state to let the soul glimpse its own vastness. Imagine lying in a stone chamber, your breath slowing your heartbeat, a distant drum, as your consciousness slips free from the body's anchor. What would you see? The initiates who returned spoke of a truth beyond illusion, a radiant thread connecting all their lives, a confirmation that the soul is not bound by one lifetime story. But this process was not for the faint of heart. Thoth's teachings, as recorded in texts like the Emerald Tablets, warned that symbolic death required preparation. The initiate had to be ready to face the raw truth of their existence, unfiltered by ego or fear. Those who were ready emerged reborn, their eyes alight with the knowledge of their eternal nature. They remembered fragments of past lives not as cinematic replays, but as visceral knowings, the weight of a warrior's sword, the grief of a healer's loss, the joy of a poet's verse. These were not mere memories, they were echoes of the soul's journey, proof that you are more than the sum of your current struggles. Yet for those unprepared, the experience could be shattering. Some became trapped in a liminal space, haunted by visions they couldn't integrate, their minds caught between worlds. This is why the technique was forbidden, shared only with those who had trained to hold the light of truth without breaking. How did they achieve this state? The details are veiled in mystery, but clues exist. The Egyptians used sound, deep, resonant chants that vibrated through the body, aligning it with the frequencies of the cosmos. Modern neuroscience supports this. Binaural beats and low-frequency sounds can induce altered states of consciousness, slowing brainwaves to theta or delta, where the boundaries of self dissolve. They also used darkness, sealing initiates in chambers for days to strip away sensory input, forcing the mind to turn inward. This mirrors sensory deprivation studies, which show that prolonged isolation can trigger profound shifts in perception, sometimes unlocking memories buried in the subconscious. Breathwork was another tool, with rhythmic patterns that mimicked the body's transition into sleep or death, coaxing the soul to wander. These were not random acts, but precise rituals designed to loosen the false self's grip and let the soul's memory surface. The science of epigenetics offers a modern lens. Some researchers, like Dr. Rachel Yehuda, suggest that trauma and experiences can leave marks on our DNA passed down through generations. Could the soul carry similar imprints across lifetimes? The mystics would say yes, and Thoth's technique was a way to access these imprints, to feel the resonance of who you were before this body, this name, this life. But the key was surrender. You could not force the soul to speak. You had to let go, to die to your fears, your pride, your need for control. Only then could the eternal self emerge, whispering truths that the waking mind had forgotten. Have you ever had a moment when you felt a strange familiarity, as if you'd lived a scene before, not déjà vu, but a deeper knowing, perhaps a place, a person, or a skill felt inexplicably yours? Reflect on that moment. What did it feel like? Write it down or share it with someone you trust. If you're curious, try this. Sit in a quiet space, close your eyes, and focus on your breath for 5 minutes. Ask yourself, who am I beyond this moment? Notice what arises. Images, feelings, or even fragments of memory. This is not symbolic death, but a gentle step toward listening to your soul. What did you discover? If you feel comfortable, consider sharing your experience in a journal or online community to inspire others. The beauty of symbolic death was its paradox. By letting go of life, you reclaimed it. The initiates who returned were not the same. They walked with a quiet power, no longer swayed by the world's illusions. They knew their soul's history not as a burden, but as a map to their purpose. Thoth's technique was a reminder that you don't need to physically die to remember who you are. You need only be willing to release the false self, to step into the unknown, and to trust that what you find will be more real than anything you've ever known. But the question remains, are you ready to face the truth of your own eternity? In the flickering torchlight of an Egyptian temple, an initiate stands before a statue of Thoth, his ibis-headed form radiating an otherworldly calm. The air hums with a question that cuts through the silence. Who are you? Not your name, not your titles, not the story you tell the world, but the truth beneath it all. The answer seems simple, yet it unravels everything. Thoth's forbidden technique, designed to awaken the memory of past lives, begins not with visions of ancient selves, but with a battle against the most insidious enemy, the false self. This is no external demon. It's the voice in your head, the weight in your chest, the invisible chains forged from childhood whispers and societal scripts. To remember who you were, you must first dismantle who you think you are. The false self is a construct, a mask the soul wears as it navigates this world. The mystics of Egypt called it the shadow of the Ka, the distorted reflection of the soul's eternal essence. In India, it's the ahamkara, the ego that clings to identity like a drowning man to driftwood. Modern psychology aligns with this ancient wisdom, the concept of the narrative self, studied by researchers like Dan McAdams, suggests we build our identities from stories, some true, many false, woven from early experiences, traumas, and cultural conditioning. You were told you're not smart enough, not pretty enough, not worthy of love, and those words became bricks in the wall of your false self. Every time you chase approval, shrink from conflict, or define yourself by your job, your bank account, or your failures, you tighten the mask. Thoth's teachings, as whispered through the emerald tablets, offer a radical antidote. Look directly at the mind and ask, is this really me? This is not a casual question, but a surgical strike. Imagine sitting in a quiet room, your eyes closed, your breath steady. You hear the chatter of your thoughts. I'm not good enough. I need to prove myself. What will they think? Now, instead of believing these thoughts, you observe them. Who is thinking them? Are they yours, or are they echoes of a teacher's criticism, a parent's fear, a society that profits from your insecurity? Neuroscience supports this practice. Mindfulness meditation, studied by researchers like John Kabat-Zinn, reduces activity in the brain's default mode network, the hub of self-referential thoughts. In that quiet gap, a space opens, a glimpse of freedom where the false self begins to crumble. This confrontation is not gentle. The false self fights back because it believes it's keeping you safe. It's the voice that says, don't question too much. You'll lose yourself. But losing the false self is the point. The mystics knew that the soul's memory, those echoes of past lives, lies buried beneath layers of limiting beliefs. A woman who feels inexplicably drawn to the sea might dismiss it as whimsy, unaware that her soul carries the rhythm of a sailor's life. A man who fears public speaking might never suspect it stems from a past life's betrayal, not just a childhood embarrassment. These are not random quirks. They are the soul's whispers muffled by the false self's noise. Thoth's technique demands you strip away the roles you play, employee, partner, victim, hero, until only the eternal remains. The process is both mystical and scientific. In ancient Egypt, initiates were guided to journal their thoughts, a practice mirrored in modern cognitive behavioral therapy, which helps patients identify and challenge distorted beliefs. They were taught to trace each thought to its root. Why do I feel unworthy? Who taught me this? This is where the battle intensifies. You might uncover a memory of being shamed at 5 years old, or a cultural narrative that equates worth with productivity. Quantum physics offers a metaphor. The false self is like a particle trapped in a probability wave, collapsing into one form only when observed. By observing your thoughts without attachment, you disrupt that collapse, allowing the soul's broader reality, its past lives, its timeless essence to emerge. But the false self is cunning. It hides in habits, in the way you scroll mindlessly to avoid your feelings, or snap at a loved one to deflect your pain. Thoth's technique requires vigilance every day. You must choose to question the mask. Try this the next time you feel anger, shame, or fear. Pause. Ask, is this me, or is this the false self speaking? Notice the sensation in your body, tightness in your chest, heat in your face. Breathe into it, not to banish it, but to see it clearly. This act of witnessing, taught by the mystics and validated by studies on emotional regulation, weakens the false self's grip. Each time you do this, you carve a path to the soul's memory, where fragments of past lives wait like stars behind a clouded sky. The reward is profound. As the false self retreats, you begin to feel a lightness, a clarity. You might sense a pull toward certain places, skills, or people, as if your soul is guiding you back to its unfinished story. A client of a past life regression therapist once described a sudden vision of herself as a medieval herbalist mixing potions under moonlight. The vision wasn't just a fantasy, it explained her lifelong obsession with plants, her intuitive knack for healing. These are the gifts of dismantling the false self, not just memories, but a reconnection to your soul's purpose. Yet the battle never fully ends. The false self is a hydra. Cut off one head and another may grow. Thoth's wisdom is clear. This is not a one-time victory, but a lifelong practice. The soul's memory, your past lives, your eternal home, they are not lost, only hidden. By facing the false self, you begin to clear the fog step by step until the truth shines through. The question now is not who am I, but am I brave enough to let go of who I'm not? The stars above the Nile glitter like fragments of a shattered mirror, each pinpoint of light a reminder of the soul's eternal vastness. In the sacred precincts of ancient Egypt, initiates who had faced the false self were led to a new threshold, the opening of the only eye. This was not the eye of flesh, nor the restless mind, nor the heart's fleeting emotions. It was a state of perception so pure it saw the world as it truly is, unclouded by labels, judgments, or the distortions of the false self. Thoth's forbidden technique hinged on this moment, for only through the only eye could the soul's memory, the echoes of past lives, rise to the surface. To remember who you were, you had to learn to see, not with the eyes that scan a crowded room, but with the vision that pierces the veil of illusion. The mystics of Egypt spoke of the only eye as the eye of Horus, a symbol of wholeness and divine sight restored after being shattered by chaos. In India, it was the drishti of the third eye, the inner vision, that perceives the unity beneath multiplicity. The Greeks, through Plato's allegory of the cave, described a prisoner who escapes shadows to see the sun's truth. These traditions converge on a singular insight: the human mind is a filter coloring reality with stories and biases. To see clearly is to strip away that filter to become a silent witness to existence. Neuroscience offers a modern echo. Studies on mindfulness, like those by Dr. Richard Davidson, show that meditative states reduce activity in the prefrontal cortex, quieting the brain's tendency to categorize and judge. In this stillness, perception shifts, and the world reveals itself anew. Imagine sitting by a river, the water's surface rippling with reflections of clouds and trees. Your mind, trained to label, might say, "That's a cloud, that's a tree." But what if you simply saw without naming, without interpreting? The ripples become patterns of light. The clouds dissolve into formless motion. This is the only eye, a way of perceiving that bypasses the false self's chatter. Thoth's technique taught initiates to cultivate this state through disciplined practice, often in the dim light of a temple chamber where the absence of distraction forced the mind inward. They were guided to focus on a single point, a candle flame, a carved ankh, until the act of seeing became an act of being. In that moment, the soul's memory stirred like a dreamer, half awakening to a forgotten life. The science of perception supports this ancient practice. The brain's visual cortex processes raw sensory data, but the higher cognitive regions overlay it with meaning. This is why two people can witness the same event and describe it differently. The only eye, as Thoth taught, reverses this process. By quieting the cognitive overlay, you allow the soul's deeper knowing to emerge. Past life memories, often dismissed as imagination, are not always vivid scenes but subtle resonances, a sense of familiarity with a stranger, a visceral pull toward a distant land. A young woman in a regression session once described standing in a medieval marketplace, the scent of bread and leather so real, she wept. She had never visited that country, yet her soul knew it. The only eye had opened, letting her see beyond the limits of this lifetime. But opening the only eye is not easy. The false self resists, flooding the mind with distractions, doubts, to-do lists, the urge to check your phone. Thoth's initiates were taught to anchor themselves in the body, using the breath as a bridge to stillness. Try this: inhale deeply, counting to 4, then exhale for 6. As you breathe, notice the sensations: air against your skin, the rise of your chest. Let thoughts come and go like clouds passing a clear sky. This practice, rooted in ancient wisdom and validated by studies on vagal nerve stimulation, calms the nervous system, creating a space where the only eye can awaken. With time, you may notice flashes of insight, images, feelings, or knowings that feel older than your current life. These are the soul's whispers rising through the cracks of a quieted mind. Take a moment to experiment with the only eye. Find a quiet space and choose an object, a leaf, a stone, a cup. Look at it for 1 minute without labeling it. Don't think green or smooth. Just see the shapes, colors, textures. How does it feel to perceive without judging? Did you notice anything unexpected? A memory, a sensation, a sense of connection. Write down your experience or share it with a friend or online community. If you're curious, try this daily for a week, noting any shifts in how you see the world or yourself. What did you discover about your own perception? The only eye is not just a tool for remembering past lives. It's a way of living. When you see without judging, you begin to sense the interconnectedness of all things. The way a stranger's smile echoes a long-lost friend, or a city's rhythm feels like a dance you've known before. Quantum entanglement offers a scientific metaphor. Particles once connected remain linked across vast distances, influencing each other instantaneously. Could the soul, entangled across lifetimes, carry traces of its past into the present? The only eye allows you to feel these traces, to recognize the eternal within the fleeting. Yet this vision comes with a responsibility. To see clearly is to see both light and shadow, your own fears, the world's pain, the beauty and fragility of existence. Thoth's initiates were warned not to cling to this state, but to integrate it, to carry the only eye's clarity into the chaos of daily life. As the false self fades and the soul's memory awakens, you begin to live as a bridge between worlds, grounded in the present, yet touched by eternity. The question now is, can you trust yourself to see the truth, no matter what it reveals? Beneath the clamor of the world traffic horns, anxious thoughts, the endless ping of notifications, there lies a silence so profound it hums with life. In this silence, the ancient Egyptians believed every soul carries a unique vibration, a resonance they called the invisible name. It is not a word you can speak, nor a title you can write. It is the frequency of your eternal essence, the song of your soul across lifetimes. Thoth's forbidden technique, designed to awaken the memory of past lives, reaches its deepest layer here. To remember who you were, you must feel this invisible name, letting it rise through the stillness like a star breaking through dawn's haze. This is not a discovery of something new, but a reunion with what has always been yours. The mystics of Egypt saw the invisible name as the soul's signature, etched into the fabric of the cosmos. In the Book of the Dead, the heart of the deceased was weighed against a feather, but it was the soul's true name, its vibration, that determined its fate. India's sages spoke of nada, the primal sound of creation echoed in each person's inner resonance. Even the Kabbalists of ancient Judea described a divine spark, a unique emanation of God's light within every being. These traditions converge on a truth beyond the false self. Beyond the mind's chatter, your soul pulses with a frequency that carries its history, every life, every lesson, every love. To access it is to unlock the door to your past lives, not as fleeting images, but as a felt sense of continuity, a thread that weaves through time. Science, in its own language, hints at this mystery. Quantum mechanics describes particles vibrating at specific frequencies, their states entangled across vast distances. Biophysics extends this to the human body. Every cell hums with electromagnetic activity, creating a unique biofield, measurable through technologies like EEG and ECG. Could the soul as an energetic entity carry a similar signature? Parapsychologists like Dr. Ian Stevenson, who studied children with spontaneous past life memories, noted that these children often displayed inexplicable skills or phobias tied to their claimed past lives, marks of a deeper resonance that transcends one lifetime. The invisible name in Thoth's teachings is this resonance of vibration that holds the imprint of your soul's journey, waiting to be felt when the noise of the false self fades. How do you access this frequency? Thoth's initiates were guided into deep meditative states, often in the resonant chambers of pyramids, where stone amplified sound and silence alike. They were taught to quiet the mind not by force, but by surrender, letting thoughts dissolve like ripples on a still pond. In this stillness they listened not with ears, but with the whole being. Modern sound therapy offers a parallel frequencies like 430 Hertz, known as the healing frequency, can induce states of calm, aligning brainwaves to theta, where intuition and memory surface. Try this site in a quiet space. Close your eyes and hum softly, letting the vibration resonate in your chest. Notice where it feels alive, where it feels blocked. This is not the invisible name itself, but a step toward sensing your soul's unique pulse. The process is delicate, for the false self loves to interfere. It whispers, "This is silly. You're imagining things." Yet the invisible name cannot be forced or fabricated. It reveals itself only in vulnerability. One initiate, as recorded in ancient texts, described feeling a warmth in her core, followed by a vision of herself as a priestess in a desert temple offering water to a dying traveler. The memory wasn't a story, but a vibration, grief, duty, and love intertwined as real as her heartbeat. This is the power of the invisible name. It bypasses the mind's need for proof, speaking directly to the soul. Neuroscience supports this intuitive knowing. The insula, a brain region tied to interoception, lights up during moments of deep self-awareness, bridging body and soul. The challenge is patience. The invisible name is shy, emerging only when the mask of the false self falls. Thoth's technique required initiates to release expectations, to stop chasing visions of grandeur, a king's crown, a warrior's glory, and instead embrace whatever arose, even if it was mundane or painful. A past life as a farmer toiling under a relentless sun might carry more wisdom than a throne. The soul's frequency holds all of it without judgment. Quantum field theory offers a metaphor. Every particle exists in a superposition of states, collapsing into one only when observed. The invisible name is your soul's superposition, containing every life you've lived, accessible when you observe without agenda. When the invisible name reveals itself, it changes you. You begin to sense your place in the cosmos, not as a fleeting speck, but as a note in an eternal symphony. A young man, after months of meditation, described a sudden knowing. He had been a scribe in ancient Babylon, his hands stained with ink. The memory explained his love for words, his need to write, even when no one read. This is the gift of the invisible name. It aligns you with your soul's purpose, showing you that your passions, your wounds, your inexplicable longings are not random, but part of a larger story. Yet the invisible name is not a destination, it's a beginning. To feel it is to stand at the edge of your soul's vastness, knowing you are both the wave and the ocean. Thoth's initiates were warned to integrate this awareness gently, lest they become unmoored by the weight of eternity. The soul's frequency, once felt, asks you to live differently, to honor the past lives that shaped you, to carry their wisdom into the present. The question now is, can you quiet the world's noise long enough to hear the song that has always been yours? In the shadowed heart of an Egyptian temple, where the air smells of myrrh and eternity, an initiate kneels before a pool of water, its surface still as glass. The reflection is not just her face, but a mosaic of every life she's lived: joy, sorrow, triumph, shame. Thoth's forbidden technique, designed to awaken the memory of past lives, reaches its crucible here: purification. This is not a cleansing of the body but of the soul, a fearless dive into the dark corners of the self, to integrate its wounds and reclaim its light. To remember who you were, you must face who you've been, all of it, without flinching. Only then can the soul take over the false self, retreating like mist before dawn. Purification in the mystical traditions is not about erasing pain, but embracing it. The Egyptians saw it as the weighing of the heart, a moment of truth where the soul confronts its burdens. In India, the Bhagavad Gita speaks of burning karma through self-awareness, while the Stoics of Greece urged facing inner shadows to achieve eudaimonia, or flourishing. Thoth's teachings, encoded in the emerald tablets, are clear, true. Light does not shy from darkness. It shines into the crevices, fears, regrets the parts of you you've buried, and invites them to the surface. This is where past life memories often hide, tangled in unresolved emotions from lives long past. A sudden aversion to water might trace back to a drowning in a forgotten century. A fear of betrayal might echo a knife in the back. Purification untangles these knots, freeing the soul to speak. Science offers a parallel in trauma research. Psychologists like Dr. Bessel van der Kolk describe how unprocessed emotions, lodge in the body, shaping behavior and perception. The amygdala, the brain's fear center, can trigger reactions tied to events you don't consciously remember, perhaps from this life, perhaps from another. Thoth's technique aligns with modern somatic therapies, which use body awareness to release stored trauma. Imagine sitting in silence, feeling a tightness in your throat. Instead of pushing it away, you breathe into it, asking, "What is this?" A memory might surface, not a clear narrative, but a sensation, the weight of a soldier's armor, the grief of a mother's loss. These are the soul's echoes rising through purification's fire. The process is both gentle and fierce. Thoth's initiates were guided to sit in sacred spaces, often near water or fire elements that mirror the soul's fluidity and transformation. They were taught to observe their emotions without judgment, to let anger, shame, or sadness flow like a river. This mirrors mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, which reduces emotional reactivity by fostering non-judgmental awareness. But purification demands more than observation. It requires integration. You don't banish your fear of failure, you ask it to tell its story. A woman in a past life regression described a vision of herself as a 17th century seamstress, shamed for a flawed garment. The memory explained her perfectionism, her dread of criticism. By feeling the seamstress's pain, she released it, her soul's light growing brighter. This is the awakening, not a sudden enlightenment, but a gradual shift, where the soul's frequency, the invisible name, begins to dominate. The false self, weakened by confrontation and purified through integration, no longer holds sway. Past life memories emerge not as distractions, but as wisdom. A man who felt an inexplicable pull to blacksmithing discovered through meditation a life as a Viking craftsman, his hands shaping iron. The memory wasn't about nostalgia, it taught him resilience, a quality he needed in his current life. Purification aligns you with your soul's purpose, revealing that every life, every wound, is a step toward wholeness. Yet purification is not without pain. The light of truth exposes what you've avoided: guilt over a past betrayal, grief for a love lost centuries ago. Thoth's initiates were warned to embrace this discomfort, for resistance only strengthens the false self. Neuroplasticity supports this. By facing difficult emotions, you rewire neural pathways, creating new patterns of response. The soul, freed from old burdens, begins to guide you, its memories a map to your deepest truths. This is the awakening, not an escape from the world, but a return to your eternal home within. Try a purification practice this week. Find a quiet moment and sit with a feeling you've been avoiding, perhaps anxiety, anger, or sadness. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and locate the sensation in your body. Don't try to fix it, just ask, "What do you want me to know?" Let any images, memories, or sensations arise, even if they feel strange or old. Write down what you experience or share it with a trusted friend or online group. Did you sense a connection to something beyond this life? How did facing the feeling change you? This small act of courage can open the door to your soul's awakening. The beauty of purification is its paradox. By diving into darkness, you find light. The soul, once obscured by the false self's shadows, begins to shine its past lives, not a burden, but a treasury of insight. Thoth's technique teaches that awakening is not a destination, but a process, a lifelong dance of facing, integrating, and releasing. As the false self fades, you become a vessel for your soul's eternal wisdom, carrying the lessons of countless lives into the present. The question now is, are you ready to let the light of your soul illuminate even the darkest corners of your being? The marketplace hums with chaos, vendors shouting, screens flashing the air, thick with the scent of coffee and exhaust. Yet in the midst of this whirlwind, you stand your breath, steady, your heart anchored to a quiet truth. Thoth's forbidden technique having guided you through symbolic death, the dismantling of the false self, the opening of the only I, the resonance of your invisible name, and the purification of your soul, now brings you to its final revelation, the art of living in the sleeping world. This is not a retreat to a mountaintop or a rejection of life's messiness, but a mindful dance within it. To remember your past lives is to awaken to your eternal home, and to live from that home is to carry the soul's light into the ordinary, transforming the mundane into the sacred. The mystics of Egypt did not train their initiates to flee the world, but to illuminate it. Thoth, the scribe of cosmic balance, taught that the awakened soul thrives not in isolation, but in the marketplace where distractions test your clarity. The emerald tablets speak of walking in the world, yet not of it a state of presence that filters the chaos without being consumed by it. In India, the concept of Sahaja Samadhi describes enlightenment, lived in daily life, cooking, working, loving, all infused with awareness. The Stoics, too, urged amor fati, embracing life's challenges as opportunities to practice virtue. This is the culmination of Thoth's technique, to live as your soul fully awake, while the world around you sleeps in illusion. Science underscores this mindful living. Neuroscientists like Dr. Andrew Newberg study the effects of contemplative practices, finding that regular mindfulness strengthens the prefrontal cortex, enhancing focus and emotional regulation amid stress. The awakened soul, having integrated past life memories, operates from a wider perspective. A woman who recalled a life as a nomadic storyteller found her fear of public speaking dissolve. She now speaks with ease, her words carrying the cadence of ancient tales. A man who sensed a past as a monk learned to pause in traffic jams, breathing deeply, his calm a ripple that soothes those around him. These are not escapes, but transformations, proof that the soul's wisdom once awakened reshapes how you navigate the world. How do you live this way? Thoth's initiates were taught to anchor themselves in the present moment, using the body as a compass. When anger flares or anxiety creeps in, they would pause, feel their feet on the ground, and ask, is this the false self or my soul? This mirrors somatic grounding techniques which studies show reduce stress by activating the parasympathetic nervous system. They also practiced selective attention, choosing what to let into their minds. In a world bombarding you with news, ads, and opinions, this is radical. Turn off the phone, step away from the noise, and listen to your soul's quiet voice. A past life memory of simplicity, a farmer's life perhaps might remind you that joy lies in a single mindful breath, not a crowded inbox. The sleeping world will test you. Colleagues gossip, deadlines loom, social media tempts you to compare. Yet the awakened soul filters these without attachment. Quantum physics offers a metaphor. Reality is a field of probabilities shaped by observation. By observing the world through the only eye, you choose presence over reaction, aligning with your soul's frequency. This doesn't mean perfection. You'll falter, snap at a loved one, scroll mindlessly. But Thoth's technique is a practice, not a finish line. Each return to awareness strengthens the soul's hold. Your past lives, a well of resilience to draw from. For one day, try living as an awakened soul in the sleeping world. Start your morning with a minute of deep breathing, setting an intention to stay present. As you move through your day, commuting, working, eating, pause every hour to notice your surroundings without judgment. Feel your breath, your feet, the texture of the moment. If a past life memory or intuitive nudge arises, note it. At day's end, journal. How did this mindful presence change your experience? Did you feel more connected to your soul's eternal home? Share your reflections with a friend or online community, or keep them private as a gift to yourself. What did you learn about living awake? The beauty of this path is its intimacy. Your soul's homecoming is not a distant temple, but within you, accessible in a crowded subway or a quiet kitchen. Past life memories now integrated are not relics but living wisdom. A fleeting vision of a healer's life might guide you to comfort a struggling friend. A warrior's echo might fuel your courage to speak your truth. This is the invisible homecoming, the realization that you were, are, and always will be home, no matter where life takes you. Neuroscience confirms this stability. Mindfulness practices build neural resilience, letting you return to your center, even in chaos. Thoth's final teaching is a whisper: you did not come to learn something new. You came to remember what has always been yours. Every step facing the false self, opening the only eye, feeling your invisible name, purifying your shadows, has led you here to a life where the eternal and the everyday intertwine. The world may sleep, but you are awake, your soul's light a beacon no storm can extinguish. The question now is, will you carry this light boldly, letting your awakened presence awaken others?